Welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. Today we're talking about rich people problems. These are 10 different things that rich people have to worry about that the average middle class person doesn't necessarily have to. So this video is not necessarily going to be educational, but it's more to spark an idea in your head to realize, hey, I'm watching Whiteboard Finance. Hopefully one day I'm going to be rich. Maybe I'll have to deal with some of these problems and maybe I'll think of ways to mitigate them. So let's start with number one. So the first off, you have to realize when you're loaded, you have to understand, does my significant other really love me? So that's a heart, okay? I'll draw a little arrow as well. So this is something that you have to think about because in the dating scene, there's a lot of people that just date people, whether they're men or women, because they're wealthy. And that actually evolves into marriage, and then you have to consider things like a prenup, and then the argument always comes up, well, you know, if you really love me, you won't sign a prenup, right? And then the person that's rich will say, well, you know, if you really love me, you don't have to worry about the prenup because we'll never have to use it. So my point to this one is that it's easier before you get rich to find a partner because I think that you're kind of starting on a level playing ground. So does my significant other really love me? Number one. Number two is, you know, the natural evolution. If you do decide to have children, you have to worry if these kids are going to be spoiled brats, right? So are my children going to be spoiled? So the philosophy that comes with this is that the kids are having an easier upbringing. You know, they're going to private schools, they're doing all the stuff that you may or may not have had the opportunity to partake in, and they're kind of starting life off on a better foot. So the problem with this, typically, from what I've seen from personal experience, is that these kids kind of lose that drive. And also from reading The Millionaire Next Door, that studies a bunch of immigrants who came here with nothing, who started their own businesses, and they always push education on their kids. Education, 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 and the kids just end up middle class because they get regular 9-to-5 office jobs, or they become like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, but they never really become an entrepreneur or someone who's super, super rich as the business owner usually becomes. So if you want to read about The Millionaire Next Door, check out the link below. It is on Audible and you can get that for free. So this could be mitigated by a proper upbringing, in my opinion. So I do know someone close to me who runs a very successful practice, and he's probably, I'd say, early 50s at this point, and all his kids were raised absolutely normally. They all had jobs. They all, you know, came up with a normal upbringing. So I think to counter number two of having spoiled children is that you have to give them all the opportunities, but you also have to be able to give and take and make sure that they know how to fend for themselves. So the natural progression of growing up rich or being rich takes you to the question of, are my friends real? Okay? So when you're rich, you always have the thought in the back of your head, are these people just taking advantage of me because I have a nice boat and I take them out for boat rides, or I throw awesome pool parties, or I throw huge parties where all the wealthiest people in the city are meeting and maybe they can rub elbows or rub shoulders with other, you know, high influential people throughout the city, right? So this lends you to the question of, are people hanging out with me just because I'm rich, or are they hanging out with me because they truly like me as a person? So this is similar to number one in the marriage category. So you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. So when rich people throw parties, I can tell you, because I've been to them, my old boss threw the best parties in the town, you're rubbing shoulders with people that you see on TV, with athletes, with people that are just overall successful individuals. There were no losers at these parties, okay? So that lends you to the question again, are these people that you really kind of grew up with, you shared a struggle with, you went through everything with, and these are my, you know, ride or die people that'll bail me out of jail at 3 in the morning, or are these kind of people that are just kind of, they're at my party because they're there to be seen, there's some way that they can gain something from being here, so that ultimately leads you to the question of, are my friends for real? So number 4, and this is one that I've seen personally, I'm trying to incorporate as much personal anecdote into these as possible. So number 4 is being considered cheap, okay? So even if you're the most philanthropic person in the world, okay, you're giving to charity, you're doing everything, all it takes is you being rich, okay, or being quote unquote perceived as rich for someone to think you're cheap if you don't buy them a round of drinks at a bar, okay? So here's a perfect example. My buddy bought a brand new, you know, beautiful Mercedes. You know, he's a younger guy, he's crushing it in sales, and I'm super happy for him. But I told him, I'm like, dude, if you drive that car around, People are going to say, oh, why didn't XYZ buy me a round of drinks? You know, he's driving a brand new Mercedes, he's driving a brand new Beamer, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to realize that when people perceive you as rich, no matter what you do, you're always going to be considered cheap, even if you're the most philanthropic person out there. So don't let this deter you from obviously achieving your goals and becoming rich, but that's why stealth wealth is important. Don't flaunt your wealth, don't shove it down people's throats. You know, just be the stealth wealth guy that gives a lot and is always perceived as being giving because people don't think you're necessarily a multi-millionaire, right? So number 5, and I hope these are making sense for you guys. Again, these are just to change, you know, the paradigm in your head once you ultimately reach this level. So number 5, so we talked about being cheap, and let's talk about something that every rich person is being scared of. So I'm going to try and draw a horse and a donkey. So there's the donkey. Okay, beautiful donkey. This is terrible. Let me just let me do this. I'll call this lifestyle inflation. Okay, so rich people aren't scared of lifestyle inflation, but my point of drawing the donkey was that there's a proverb in the old country that goes, it's easy to go from a donkey to a horse, but back down from a horse to a donkey is a whole nother story. So that talks about lifestyle inflation. So rich people are scared of losing it all. They've worked so hard to build up, you know, their reputation and their wealth and their status within the community. And if you lose it all, it's kind of like, crap, I got to start all the way back from zero, even though I've made all these sacrifices. So number 6 is one that most of us don't have to worry about, but it's definitely a point for landlords that own their properties free and clear, high net worth celebrities, people that are in the public eye. We've seen more and more of this, especially in the media these days, and that's being a target for lawsuits. Okay, so that's a target, and we'll just call this lawsuits. Okay, so people know you have money. You're either a public figure, you're known within the community, you're a landlord that owns property free and clear. They're going to go after you and try and take your property. They just conveniently slipped on some ice in front of your sidewalk. So here's a perfect example of a true example that's happened in my real life. So this didn't happen to me. It happened to a family friend of mine. They're ultimately renting a really nice house in a really nice suburb because they're waiting on their new house to be built. So ultimately, while that house was being built, they got into a car accident where it truly was not their fault. There was a camera on the highway, everything was recorded, and ultimately the person who was suing them was just going to go after the original money that the insurance claim covered, okay, whether it was like 100 grand, 300 grand, I forgot what it was. And then their lawyer actually drove by the house that they were renting, saw that it was in a beautiful neighborhood, it's a very expensive home. They actually upped the amount of the litigation, of the lawsuit, just because they thought they made more money than they really did. So again, that stealth wealth is kind of what's going to save you here, what we talked about earlier. So rich people are a target for lawsuits. Okay, so number 7, you guys all remember the game show called Family Feud. Okay, so rich people have to worry about their estate after they pass. So this is family bickering after your death. So they know grandpa's loaded, they know he started a business, 50, 60, 70 years ago. There's millions in the bank account. When am I going to get my slice? So we've seen families being torn apart over money, which is really sad because time, health, and family are probably the 3 most important things in life. And if you're kind of missing that, you're kind of missing the point, in my opinion. So this needs to be discussed with an estate planning attorney before that person passes away. And even then, a lot of people are not going to be happy with what they're left in the will. They're going to say, oh, I only got the beachfront property. I wanted the business. I wanted this. So ultimately, it's human nature to where people are never happy. So number 8 is one that I think we've all experienced in one way or another. We've had friends go off to college. We've had friends become losers. We've had friends become successful. Number 8 is growing apart. So I'll use the one instead of the friends being together. The friends are going to be growing apart and they end up doing their own thing, okay? So as I mentioned earlier in this video, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. That's almost fact and it's almost guaranteed. You hang out with people that live in their mother's basement, that smoke marijuana and play video games. that's probably what you're going to end up being. You hang out with, multi-million-dollar CEOs that run their own company that are ambitious, you're probably going to land somewhere over there. So ultimately, people take different roads in life. Another personal experience of mine, one of my best friends, I've known him since we were 5 years old. He's a very successful medical professional, but he went off to school when we were 18, and that's when our relationship kind of went apart, even though I still see him to this day, we're still best friends. The thing is though, we've grown apart because he's moved to another city, he's gone into another field, he's done so many different things that they haven't meshed with my life. So we're not as close as we used to be. So the rich have to worry about this because they see the sacrifice of giving up the loser friends that are sitting in their mom's basement, smoking marijuana, playing Xbox. They cut those people out of their lives. And those are usually the people who say, "What's up, bro? You forgot about me?" Well, sometimes you do have to cut those loose ends. I hate to say that. So growing apart from childhood friends is another one that the rich have to worry about. Number 9, this kind of ties into what we just talked about, and that's missing out on memories, okay? So I'll draw a little thought bubble here of the positive memories. Missing out on these memories is that, how do I explain this? Here's a perfect example. So my boss, my previous boss, not the job that I just left to do YouTube full time, but my job before that, he's a good dude. He hired me. He was about in his mid-20s. I was in my late 20s at the time. Ultimately, he was working, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. And I'm just like, I asked him one day, I'm like, dude, is it worth it? Like, when is enough? Talking about money. He was making probably, 400 or 500 grand at the time per year. And I asked him, I'm like, when is enough? And he looks at me and says, he's like, what else am I going to do? I don't really have any friends. So I'm like, that kind of shifted a paradigm in my head, thinking to myself, well, you make all this money, but is it worth it? What's the point of all this? So that leads me to number 10, sacrificing memories, and also the ultimate question that the rich face, is it worth it? So that's the $1 million question, okay? At the end of the day, you've sacrificed friends, you've sacrificed most likely time, health, family, you're worried about your spouse, you're worried about your kids, you're worried about all this stuff just to build, whether it's a business or a service or something that's made you your millions. At the end of the day, the rich people have to worry when they're on their deathbed, was it all worth it? And that's the $1 million question, and only they can look inside themselves and find out if that's true or not. So that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this kind of philosophical type of video. If you liked it, let me know down below. And also, what are your thoughts about some things that rich and poor people have to face in their lives? At the end of the day, it's always nice having money in the bank because money is options and money is security. And money, I look at it just as freedom units, if you will. But it really depends on the stuff you have to sacrifice throughout your life to get there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it with one friend. YouTube is my full-time gig now, so I really appreciate you spreading the word. Thank you so much and have a prosperous day.